3 months ago, we ranked Super Paper Mario as our favorite of the Paper Mario games. From ranking it as the #1 Mario game to including it in our bio, we here at Game Domain believe Super Paper Mario to be one of the greatest games of all time. Now, that's a pretty bold claim. Being the greatest game of all time is most definitely not a title we give out lightly. That's why today, we would like to discuss what exactly makes the chapters in this game so great. In other words, from worst to best. We will be describing why this game's chapters are so special. My name is Taylor, and welcome back to Game Domain. With that out of the way, here's what we believe to be the worst of Paper Mario's 8 chapters. Number 8, Chapter 1, Lineland. Starting off our list is the chapter that started off the game. This is an amazing chapter with great concepts that suffers from first world syndrome. The majority of this chapter is designed to teach the player how to play the game. Due to this inevitability, there are not as many complex and flourished ideas as the other chapters. Chapter 1-1 is a replication of the original Super Mario Bros. Level 1-1. Chapter 1-1 introduces the flip mechanic, and Chapter 1-2 helps you master it, with events like having to flip to evade the boulders and find the Red Bridge Man. Chapter 1-2 also introduces you to the first swappable pixel, Thoro. Chapter 1-3 continues to explore the flip mechanic. Both the 3D flip mechanic and pixels are integral to the rest of the game. Chapter 1-4's Fractale is the test of your mastery of pixels and 3D flipping as Mario. There's not much else to say about Chapter 1 other than it makes for an excellent tutorial world that cannot hold up to the other chapters in the game. Number 7, Chapter 4, Outer Space. Here's another chapter that suffers because of its obligation. The entire chapter takes place in space, meaning there is a large open environment to explore. For what the chapter is attempting to accomplish, it does excellently. However, the vast space of chapters 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3 allows for a lack of memorable locations and a slower pace in comparison to other levels. With the negatives out of the way, the chapter is overwhelmingly overshadowed with its positives. The atmosphere of the space sections in the first 3 levels is absolutely phenomenal. When you're traveling through space, you feel like you're actually on a space expedition. Both the atmosphere and character development of Squirps is exceptional. He begins as an integral part of exploring the universe in the first 3 levels, and ends with a twist. In 4-4, after the two of you battle one of the best villains in a Mario game, Mr. L, we learn the truth of Squirps and his mother. After all this time of adventuring alongside the tiny green alien, it turns out Squirps is actually Squirp Carogaline Squirpina, the Prince of Squirpia. Learning that Squirp's mother sent him on this quest to guide you to the pure hearts as long as 1500 years ago reminds the player how important collecting these pure hearts is. Number 6, Chapter 5, Land of Cagnons. Chapter 5 has an incredible final level, but it's held back by its first 2 levels. The first level introduces you to Cagnons. After learning that the plant Floro-Sapiens are kidnapping the Cagnons, you chase them throughout the land of Cagnons for the next 2 levels. Many of the puzzles in this area feel very cheap, such as having to backtrack twice for a combination, one of which is 25 presses long. Another example of this is the hammer pixel you unlock, Cudge. The puzzles regarding Cudge aren't too much more complex than hitting certain yellow blocks. However, once you get to the 3rd level, you're introduced to the incredible level design. Chapter 5-3 takes place in a very small area with a lot of clever backtracking. Chapter 5-4 does the same thing as well. One of the best examples is the Floro Sprout that you unlock after defeating Ochunks. Another example is the use of the new pixel Dottie, allowing you to explore the same area in a whole new light. Using Dottie's shrink ability allows you to enter miniature doors and pipes seen throughout your adventure in 5-4. This clever design allows for a great feeling of accomplishment, like you've truly conquered this level. To go back to the battle against Ochunks, this encounter gives an incredible framework for later events. Dementio uses the Floro Sprout to mind control Ochunks, which is not the last time we see the Floro Sprout be used this way. The best of all the levels in this chapter is definitely 5-4, due to its build-up and boss fight. Going through the locations of the final boss, you read the history of the Floro-Sapiens. You learn all about the accomplishments the civilization has made, and start to feel more remorse for the enemy. Knowing you're going to have to battle the current ruler, you subsequently wish you didn't have to destroy the accomplishments the Floro-Sapiens have worked so hard to achieve. This grief is all made even larger once the boss is defeated. Mario and the gang learn that the Floro-Sapiens have no evil intentions. The only wrongdoings they've ever done were due to their mental illnesses, caused by the polluted water. The polluted water, it turns out, was caused by the Cagnons, the beings you have been helping this entire time. Snatching the pure heart, the player feels more guilty than ever before. Number 5, Chapter 6, Sammer's Kingdom. Sammer's Kingdom has the most boring gameplay of all the chapters. The player has to tediously battle 25 very similar enemies while reading very witty dialogue. However, where Sammer's Kingdom fails in gameplay, it makes up for in story. The purpose of Sammer's Kingdom is not to let the player have a fun time, it's to expose them to Count Bleck's emotions and the true terror of the void. After completing 25 battles, the void grows frighteningly bigger, causing all of the Sammer's guys to go into a complete panic. Knowing the void is too close to being stopped, there is a feeling of shock. For the first time, there's a threat threatening over 100 innocent people, and there's nothing Mario can do to stop it. The player is hit with the realization that this entire kingdom is going to be obliterated, and they are completely helpless in stopping it. Count Bleck even makes his first appearance with the heroes since the beginning of the game. We see the anticipated realization of the relationship between Timpani and Blumiere as Count Bleck acknowledges his past relationship with Timpani, and Tippy begins to have some recollection of her past. After a battle with Mimi that tests the player's mastery of 2D to 3D flipping since the first battle with Mimi back in Chapter 2, the worst happens. The void consumes this entire world, full of life and gorgeous Japan-inspired music. Upon re-entering the world, Mario and his company realize the result of Count Bleck's work. The entire world, once bursting with color, is now nearly completely white. In other words, everything and everyone once there has been completely obliterated. The player must travel through miles of emptiness, hearing nothing but the patter of their own feet and their thoughts. The level ends with a battle against Mr. L, adding more personality to the character who proves to be very important, both as Mario's brother and as a boss by the end of the game. It goes without saying that the atmosphere of this chapter is absolutely phenomenal. Number 4, Chapter 2, Merlys Mansion. Chapter 2 is an amazing chapter that is held back by the first level, Gloam Valley. Although it has great music, the design of 2-1 feels like more of Chapter 1, which is ranked lowest on this list. After this transition level, however, Chapter 2 really shines. Chapter 2-2 takes place in Merlys Mansion, where we encounter one of Count Bleck's minions, Mimi. She pretends to be Merly's maid, but once unchaining a chained beast, he ignores Mario and chases her, serving as a hint of her cruelty. There are several traps hidden throughout the mansion, a recurring theme of Mimi's that begins here. 2-3 is one of the most clever levels in the entire game. After breaking a pot, Mimi tasks you with paying her back in the form of 1 million rubies. The initial method used to collect rubies is absurd. However, after paying for a tip from a prisoner, it is discovered that there's a secret room in which the player can obtain rubies much faster. After saving up some more rubies using this new room, you can buy another tip, which leads to a safe full of 1 million rubies. This discovery is incredibly relieving and makes for a great sense of accomplishment. Overall, the concept of the level is very unique, making for a memorable experience. Chapter 2-4 is equally as clever. After revealing the truth about Mimi, she goes on a rampage, shifting into her true spider form and chasing you throughout the basement of Merlys Mansion. This section of the game will always be horrifying, especially on the first playthrough, making for an incredibly memorable experience once again. An equally, if not more memorable experience can be found after discovering the whereabouts of Merly. Mimi shapeshifts, a recurring ability of hers, into Merly. With the two looking identical, the player must witness the 66th annual That's My Merly show to determine who the true Merly is. The cleverness of the dialogue and overall humor of the situation makes for a show worth watching. The following battle against Mimi is spectacular, especially considering all the build-up behind her spider form with the previous basement chase. The battle tests the player's skill of the Pixel Thoro and overall fighting skills. The action-packed level makes the Pure Heart all the more rewarding, adding to the significance the Pure Hearts have to the player universally. Chapter 2-2, 2-3, and 2-4 are phenomenal levels, packed with creativity and humor that are held back by 2-1. Number 3, Chapter 3, Fort Francis. Like Chapter 2, Chapter 3 is a shining example of back-to-back action and incredible humor. Chapter 3 takes these concepts from Chapter 2 and expands upon them with a great first level. Chapter 3-1 begins by introducing the anime-loving Francis, who has come to take Tippy. The absence of Tippy in an earlier chapter is meant to make the player realize how important Tippy is to their gameplay. Making the butterfly pixel a target of desire is important in making her a likable character. The purpose of making Tippy a likable character can be seen by the end of the game in her relationship with Count Bleck. 3-1 has a gorgeous pixel art style, with the highlight of the level being the battle against Bowser. It's not the most spectacular boss fight, and a bit easy, but a battle against Bowser will always be epic. 3-2 continues the pixel art style, but this time underwater. Being a water level, it is not the all-time greatest, but definitely makes for a very solid level. The level has great puzzles, most of which have to do with combinations, and an extraordinary boss fight against a massive blooper. The battle, as with most of Chapter 3, is the highlight of the level. Remembering to target the red tentacles, you must evade and attack the blooper's long, squirmy arms. 3-3 is full of vertical platforming that can get very frustrating very quickly. Slight mistakes can lead to having to restart a large section of the level, but the boss fight, once again, more than makes up for it. 3-3 is the anticipated first battle with Dementio, the last of Count Bleck's minions, except Nastasia, to be battled at this point. The battle introduces us to Dementio's attacks, as well as Dimension D, a dimension created by Dementio. Battling here is a splendid introduction to the dimension that proves to be important in the game's ending. 3-4, the Battle of Fort Francis, is by far the highlight of Chapter 3. To start, the pixel art style shines in this level. The vibrant colors in simplistic designs are gorgeous and fit the atmosphere of Fort Francis perfectly. There's also plenty of Nintendo references in the fortress, including a Virtual Boy, N64, GameCube, and Yoshi's. This castle has some of the best puzzles in the Mario game, including cleverly flipping into 3D to cross a pit of spikes, and answering humorous security questions to access keys. Speaking of humor, the fight against Francis has some of the best humor in the entire game. If you played this fight, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The highlight of the battle is the dating simulation between Princess Peach and the nerdy lizard Francis, Swoon.exe. Swoon.exe is a hilarious feature that captures the charm of Paper Mario games perfectly. Overall, Chapter 3 is a gorgeous chapter packed with excellent boss fights and that iconic Paper Mario humor. Number 2, Chapter 7, Underwear and Over There. The underwear and over there have to be two of the most clever ideas for level locations in Mario games. The underwear answers the question of where creatures of the Mario universe go when they run out of lives. The characters of the underwear have witty dialogue describing what Koopa Troopa they ran into or what bottomless pit they fell down to get here. Not to mention, this is the level where Mr. L takes a break and we're finally reintroduced to Luigi. Using Luigi's super jump to find Love Bee is a blast. After speaking with the ruler of the underwear and agreeing to guide Love Bee to the over there, Chapter 7-1 ends and 7-2 begins. Chapter 7-2 is full of mythological references, including the Fates and the three-headed Chain Chomp, which also makes for both a refreshing and hilarious battle. The triple Chain Chomp, of course, is a reference to Cerberus, the three-headed dog that prevents the dead from leaving the underworld. There's also character consistency shown as we see Bowser once again viewing the Mario Brothers as enemies. After a battle against the Fiery Beast, he agrees to rejoin your team for his one goal that's never changed, being with Princess Peach. After exiting the underwear, the weakest chapter of 7's levels, 7-3 begins in the sky. The level is centered around traversing clouds to find the correct fruit to awaken Peach from her slumber. The tedious platforming and backtracking make for a weaker level in comparison to the rest. Upon reaching the over there, Chapter 7-4 begins. 7-4 has some of the tedious gameplay of 7-3 with an ending that makes up for it. You're tasked with collecting 3 orbs, which requires much backtracking and confusion. Once collected, however, the best parts of the level begin. After the Nimbies agree to hold off the attackers from the underwear, the players encounter Love Bee's father, Granby, who had been attacked by the leader of the underwear attackers, Bonechill. Bonechill is meant to be this game's equivalent to Lucifer, a fallen Nimby turned evil. Bonechill reveals Love Bee is actually the Pure Heart, and her mother and father are not who she thinks they are. After a boss fight that should be much tougher, Love Bee, her father Granby, and her mother Jades. The dialogue that follows is some of the most touching Super Paper Mario has to offer. Love Bee and her 2 guardians realize the reality of the situation and what Love Bee must do in a heart-wrenching conversation. Collecting the Pure Heart that once was Love Bee, the player further realizes how important the Pure Hearts are to both the heroes and to the victims of the threatening void. Number 1, Chapter 8, Castle Black. The final chapter of Super Paper Mario encompasses everything a final chapter of a video game should be. Each level draws parallels to the villains and the heroes of the story, growing the characters to their highest potential. Chapter 8-1 has Bowser's face-off against O'Chunks, who is larger and chunkier than ever. The battle between the 2 tough guys of the game directly shows how similar the 2 characters really are. Their cooperation to save the hero further proves the bond the 2 have, despite their everlasting battle of toughness. Their sacrifice signifies that the character of Bowser and O'Chunks is completely fleshed out. Rather than drawing parallels between Bowser and O'Chunks, Chapter 8-2 compares Princess Peach and Mimi. Mimi's abilities are explored to their fullest potential, with traps and mimics of other characters being plentiful. The last battle against the Spider-Woman, a battle between the princess and Mimi. The sacrifice Peach is willing to make to end the level demonstrates how her character is explored to its fullest potential as well. Dementio shines in Chapter 8-3 with rooms full of sneaky enemies and wacky tricks. The parallels between the quirky Luigi and Dementio show here, in preparation for 8-4. Chapter 8-4 is everything a final level should be. The 3 main gameplay aspects of this game, battling enemies, platforming, and flipping into 3D, are abundant. With rooms of the toughest enemies and platforming sections with pipes hidden in 3D, this truly is a test of your mastery of the game. The final boss is a masterpiece, by every sense of the word. It's so wonderful, it's nearly indescribable. After the touching dialogue between Lady Timpani and Blumiere, the battle begins with many restrictions. This includes having only Mario as a playable character and Count Bleck's shield. However, after a few attempted hits, Bowser, Peach, and Luigi arrive. Upon arrival, the Pure Hearts illuminate the battlefield and counter the Chaos Heart. With a full roster of characters, the true fight against Blumiere begins. The fight takes place in the very room the player has been observing throughout the cutscenes in the entire game, giving the environment much more importance. The music corresponding to the Count is phenomenal, and the fight is the same. Blumiere's arsenal of moves includes a temporary shield, like that of the Chaos Heart, and a miniature black hole, like that of the Void. These two moves represent the dangers Blumiere has posed throughout the entire game. Upon defeat, Lady Timpani and Blumiere get to speak once again. Blumiere requests the heroes end his game. However, Timpani begs for any other option. Before they can reach a conclusion, Nastasia sacrifices herself so the Count is not hit by Dementio's attack. Seeking to create a world of peace, Dementio sends Blumiere, Timpani, and Nastasia to his dimension, and combines his powers with that of Luigi's and the Chaos Heart. Now, in the ultimate vessel for the Chaos Heart, Super Paper Mario's best music plays, and the true final battle begins. While the player is exposed to the other worlds being threatened by the near-complete Void, Lady Timpani and Blumiere have yet another heart-wrenching moment. The Count is overcome with grief, and declares there is nothing to do but accept defeat. While Timpani attempts to convince the man she has loved otherwise, Blumiere's minions return. Their persistent loyalty to Count Bleck creates a new set of pure hearts used to counter Dementio's. The final battle, while not extremely tough, carries extreme weight due to everything that's riding on it. If Mario, Bowser, and Peach cannot stop Dementio, all worlds will cease to exist. Upon defeating Dementio once and for all, it's made apparent he left behind some of his powers to control the Chaos Heart. Blumiere and Timpani conclude there is only one way to counter the Chaos Heart: to profess their love to each other at the altar from the beginning of the game. Blumiere and Timpani confess their love to each other and live happily together, presumably in the afterlife. Between the parallels between the heroes and villains, the parallels from the marriage at the beginning of the game to the end, the character development of Count Bleck's minions, the dramatic music, the growing relationship between Blumiere and Lady Timpani, and the tragic ending, Chapter 8 is truly a chapter worthy of the #1 spot on our list. But hey, that's just our opinion on this game's chapters. Make sure to let us know your opinions in the comments below. And if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. It's completely free, and you can always change your mind later. We've also got a Discord with almost 600 people that you should join. Until next time, this has been Taylor with Game Domain.